can you get stronger and lose weight? I believe you need to choose. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. Can you get stronger but also lose weight at the same time? This question has come up.
It's the Holy Grail.
It is. How can I get leaner but like way more jacked? Now it's a relatively simple thing once you break it down, but it seems complex on the outside. All of us would love to be, a little bit less tummy, a bit more muscle. I think that's the general consensus amongst most humans. But it is a harder thing to do than it would seem, so we're going to break it down. So this came up more recently because a friend of mine wanted to lose weight for a BJJ competition, and then they're also, but I don't want to get weaker. I was like, oh, that's hard to do. So let's break that down. Now, I have lost dramatic amounts of weight in the past for different reasons, but I definitely didn't get stronger at that time, but I didn't have an expectation to get stronger. And let's talk about that, because to lose weight, whether it be a lot or a little, you need to go into a calorie deficit, whatever that looks like. So without getting too over the top, basically you've got to put in less calories than you expend, and you've got to do that relatively consistently. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that works. People do it all the time. People do it in a lot of ways.
To drop weight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like for sure. It's, it's controlled starvation.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Basically.
And yeah, I guess, super basic for those calories is just energy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to eat less than you are expending. And so over time, this is called a calorie deficit. Over time, you have no choice but for your body to start eating itself.
Yeah.
And that's, where you start to reduce body fat, and you will also reduce other things, right? It's not exclusively fat. You will also lose muscle.
Yeah.
So that's like the weight loss thing. And I guess just to make it clear, weight gain is the opposite of that, right?
Sure.
You eat more than you need. But then define for me, like in the context of this, what is strength?
So there's all different types of strengths. Like I think within the classifications, there's like 7 different types of strengths. The thing about this is oftentimes feeling strong, like people want to feel strong. Like, but that's relevant to the amount of energy you have. Like they say, fatigue makes cowards of us all. So that's often why lots of fight coaches, wrestling coaches really push conditioning a lot. So you never get tired. You're always strong. But if we're talking about the context of lifting weights, if we're talking about maximum strength, 1 RM, it's very difficult to improve that and be in a calorie deficit.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about where you can get strong when you lose weight. So body weight exercises, calisthenics, relative strength, like strength relative to your body weight, that can improve if you lose weight. For example, you're a 70 kilo human, male or female, regardless, and you can do a couple of pull-ups, maybe 3 or 4 pull-ups. You go on this weight loss thing, you start getting into a calorie deficit, and you're working your pull-ups, you're like, oh, actually my pull-ups are getting stronger. The body weight is coming down, you have less weight to lift. And so neurologically, it's actually easier. And so, you're like, oh man, I got stronger. But here's the thing. This is the thing they don't account for. A lot of the time when people get into like weight loss diets, they're going to cut out certain foods. And I'm not going to go really hard into that, but the most calorie dense food is fat. And so for every gram of fat, you're getting, roughly speaking, 9 calories, 10 calories. Whereas for protein and carbohydrates, you're having less calories per gram of that macro. So a lot of time people will reduce their fat intake. But here's the thing. Fat is actually like a neurotransmitter. Like it's really good for our nervous system to have fat. It's really good for our brains to have fat. So cutting out fat actually is going to go in the other direction for helping you be strong. If we look at the strongest people in the world, now it doesn't mean they're all fat, but if we're talking maximally strong people, they're not the leanest. They're not. Like the idea I think we misassociate. We look at people on the internet, and we're like, oh, he's ripped. He's got abs. Oh, he's athletic. He must be strong. But if you look at like the world's strongest man or even some of like the Olympic lifters, Some of the Olympic lifters are lean.
The heavyweight lifters are usually tubby.
They're pretty tubby. Yeah, and even myself, you know, I've been kind of obsessed with strongman for the last couple of years.
It gets a little bit tubby from time to time.
I can.
Wears it well.
I can. No. Yeah. wearing these XL shirts, baby.
Yeah. Damn, is it hot in here? I'm sweating.
Joey's like,
well, it's the middle of winter.
Is that a medium? No, this is an XL shirt. It's never fit so
hungry.
But here's the thing, and this is just something I've learned from working with people stronger than me, that your ability to be stronger is really dictated by having the most energy you can commit to workouts. So eating less doesn't equate with getting stronger in a maximal way.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me try and like just distill that down. This episode is brought to you by Parry Athletics, the exclusive apparel sponsor of the Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. We've been working with these guys for quite some time now. We absolutely love the company. We love their gear, both for training and also just looking slick off the mats. They got excellent no-gi wears, shorts, t-shirts, all that cool stuff. If you want to get yourself into some Parry clothes or you want to rock the Bulletproof for BJJ exclusive merch, you got to go through Parry, go to parryathletics.com and use the code bulletproof20 to get 20% off your order. They ship internationally. And so it's like, if your goal is to get stronger, don't restrict how much food you're eating, right?
Yeah.
Basically. But if you're like, well, I want to get stronger, but I also want to like drop a bit of weight, you got to understand, and I guess this is what we'll get into, is that like they're two competing desires.
Yes.
And so if getting stronger was your absolute top priority, then we'd be like, no, man, you can't lose weight. No. But if you're like, well, I want to do that, but I also want to do that, it's like, okay, well, you can probably push the needle a little bit on both.
Yeah.
But you're just not going to be doing an excellent job of both.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, as a way to model that in the mind, it's like, you want to get really good. You're trying to build your guard game in jiu-jitsu. You train 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But you go to a wrestling class, one of those 3 sessions.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not the best thing for your guard game.
No.
But it's good for your jiu-jitsu. So, whatever. Do what you want.
Do it.
So in that way then, like I'm thinking back right to when I was at my strongest. Mm-hmm. And I say strongest in terms of like, well, I was in my late 20s. So I think it was probably just peak Joey, but
less commitments to anything.
Yeah, that's right. Just opened a gym, like had all, it was 0 time doing business, 100% of the time training, but like was just training an obscene amount and was really chasing it and like hyper caffeinated and just trying to get after it. And I say strongest, like body weight, strength, lifting weights, like all of it. But I also was like unintentionally under eating the whole time.
Right.
And it was because I was really big on this paleo thing at the time.
Sure.
And so like for folks who, maybe aren't so familiar, paleo things like no grains, right? So I'm like basically very little carbohydrates, and you can eat some like roots and stuff, but I wasn't really fucking with much. But so what happens when you cut carbohydrates out, it's just like you're cutting out this huge portion of food. You're in a calorie deficit, right?
Yeah.
And to add to that, I was also like just drinking way more coffee and shit than I needed to. Point being, I was super lean and ripped at the time, and also my strongest. However, looking back, I know I would have been much stronger had I have eaten more.
Yes.
And so whatever, it was just the thing I did at the time, and I'm still really happy with how strong I was.
Yeah.
I don't pine for that extra 10% I could have had, but there were competing obligations there,
Definitely.
And so in that way, I guess it's just sort of to illustrate that point about knowing that things are competing.
You do have to choose.
Yeah.
Like this is the difficult thing that, but que nos dos? Why can't I get lighter but also be way stronger? Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do believe you can be at a lighter weight if you can stabilize there and get stronger at that weight. But you can't take 2 journeys. You got to go to the weight loss state. Can you sustain it? And then gradually chip away at getting stronger while being adapted to eating less and being that smaller human. Whereas you can go the other way too. You can go, right, I'm going to eat more, kind of get bigger, get stronger. And then once you've established a certain level of strength, then if you wanted to change your body composition and become more efficient, like lose body fat, do whatever, you can do that and try and maintain your strength best you can. But invariably, it will go down.
Which we do know, right? Like if we use bodybuilders as the example, they always prioritize one thing.
Yes.
So it's bulking season, it's cutting season.
Yes.
And it's like, and it's because we know physiologically you'll do the best job of putting on muscle if you just put on muscle, just bulk.
Yeah.
And then you do the best job of getting rid of fat if you just cut fat.
Yeah.
However, I think we're speaking to people who are like, nah, man, I want to do both. I got 3 months. I'm like, I've signed up to the gym for 3 months. I want to do both.
Yes. Well, let's just set the expectation then. Like, let's just be clear on what it is. Because oftentimes people will go, yeah, but what is just like the best food for weight loss? You're like, oh, hang on a second. Oh, yeah, but what is the best exercise for burning body fat? You're like, no, it doesn't work like that, bro.
People still ask you that shit?
Well, no, this is the internet, man.
Yeah,
There's plenty of people out there who think that there is the one holy grail of life fix.
Like when you see those training infographics on Instagram, and it's like best foods for weight loss. It's like an illustration, and it's usually like some like jacked dude with a beard, and then it's like carrots, pineapple,
Whatever the fuck.
It's got like 1.5 million likes. You're like, ah, shit.
And then below it says trend, little injectable bottle. I think part of what set this up is that humans are very visual creatures. We all love the internet, and we're staring at people who are on a lot of drugs, and they're not necessarily giving us the full information. So we think, oh no, well this person, they're really lean and they're really strong, and you're like, yeah, they're also chemically enhanced, and so it's hard to try and live up to that. So to the side, steroids to the side, let's just talk about like, in order for you to lose weight, you have to be paying attention to the food you're eating. Now, it doesn't mean you have to count every single calorie, but for sure you need to have an awareness of roughly what's my total amount of energy that I take in a day. Also, how active are you? Because I was talking to a big bloke who's trying to lose weight, and he's a big, strong guy. And I said to him, how much walking do you do? He's like, oh, I don't walk. It's like, really? At all? He's like, nah, like I drive 90 minutes to work. I've got a very active job. You know, I'm lugging steel around and I'm doing all this. So I have a very active day. And I'm like, yeah, but your body's used to that. You've developed a tolerance for that. And that also means you're 20 kilos overweight. You know, like your body's efficient at hauling steel. And so this guy's not lazy. He's an active guy, but he also sits 3 hours a day, like 90-minute drive to work, 90-minute drive home. And often, you know, that's kind of unavoidable. But I just said to him, man, if you want to lose weight, you've got to do exercise on top of that. You've got to burn more. You know, you've got to balance the scales in the direction of weight loss. So one of the easier things he could do is try and reduce his calorie intake a little bit, but he needs to up the calorie output. He needs to be moving more. And one of the worst things about our modern society is we just don't walk. We sit in the chair at work, we sit in the car, we sit on the couch, and it doesn't mean that you don't exert energy. This isn't calling anyone lazy. It's just we're just generally less active than we used to be because life is more convenient in that way. So
I'm just trying to think of, you know, you mentioned before, like the people, you know, we see people on Instagram and chemically enhanced, etc. But I'm thinking like, all right, so who are the grapplers that people are looking at and being like, yeah, I want to like, and I'm thinking Mikey Musumeci, right? You're looking at Mikey, you're like, kid is shredded.
So lean.
Look at him. And I think it looks like he just eats basically at nighttime, right? He's one of those guys that
and
just
he eats a lot of carbs. He's very open about eating pizza and pasta, right?
Yeah, but it's like he's one meal.
But the thing I guess we probably can't appreciate about Mikey was for the longest time he was competing under 55 kilos. Like he was starving himself.
Oh yeah.
You know, like if you look at him versus Bruno Malfacini.
Under 55.
Yeah. So Malfa's not tall. And you look at Mikey compared to Malfa, he's like really tall. And so now obviously he's not competing at that weight. But this guy has starved himself forever.
Yeah.
It's like looking at like Lance Armstrong back in like the old days, being like, man, Lance is ripped. Yeah, that guy cycles 7 hours a day Like Mikey is doing BJJ. He's also doing MMA. He's doing kickboxing.
He's probably lifting some weights.
The dude is never not training.
And that's the thing. Like when you're looking at people like that, right? They are doing an obscene volume of training.
Yep.
And eating very little.
Yeah.
Like and when we say very little, it's like if you looked at what Mikey's calorie intake was, I'm sure it would be like
far below,
probably 50 to 70% of whatever his body needs for maintenance. Like it'd be really low. Now, here's the thing. That is like, while we're saying like that is scientifically not the best thing for optimal performance, like if we're looking at the science, the sports science, it's not the best thing for optimal performance, but it's the best thing for Mikey.
Sure.
And there's a lot of athletes that do things that do kind of fly in the face a little bit of, right, of what the sports science says.
Yeah.
But so, you know, that's, and I would kind of equate that to like my story about when I was in my late 20s,
Sure.
where it's like, yeah, if you train a fuckload and eat very little, man, you'll be lean and you'll be very strong. But it's very hard to do that. I would say as well, like if you've got other shit going on in life, family, work, all that sort, it's very hard to do that.
It's not sustainable, right?
No, you just bury yourself because you're so f***ing tired.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a certain age where it's like you just have another coffee and get on with it. I've had that situation a couple of times recently where I've come to training with some water, but I haven't had any electrolytes, and I've finished training and I've had to go to a convenience shop and buy myself some kind of sports drink, usually a Gatorade. Cost me like $7. It's small and it really doesn't contain that much of the good stuff that I'm looking for, which are the electrolytes. Sodi, on the other hand, is my partner when it comes to hydration, and I'd simply just run out of it. And it sucks because I got to go buy expensive stuff that doesn't do anywhere near as good a job. I'm super stoked that we've been restocked with the Sodi, and now I can be properly hydrated when I train jiu-jitsu. This has always been an underexplored aspect of my training, and I'm so stoked that we now have these guys in place to support us and also the listeners of the show. So if you want to be hydrated on the mats so that you can perform at your best and have the best mental clarity while training, get yourself some Sodi. Go to sodi.com.au. That's SODII.com.au. Get yourself some delicious hydration salts and use the code bulletproof15 for 15% off. Go to sodi.com.au, get yourself hydrated.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you are trying to lose weight for a competition and it's just like a 12-week sprint and you're trying to do that, that's fine. You shouldn't. So a saying that I learned, and this is relevant to just behavior change, which is like you shouldn't quit smoking and start a diet on the same day. Why is that? Because self-control and willpower is connected to energy. If you have more energy, it's easier to have self-control. If you're really tired and you're really hungry, it's harder to exert self-control. So if you're really trying to quit smoking, this is to the side, but if you're trying to quit smoking, don't start the diet yet. You're going to need that energy to fight the temptation to want to smoke. And you might actually end up eating more because you're trying to keep yourself busy. In the same way, if you're trying to start a diet, don't quit smoking, because all of the hunger and the bullshit you're going to deal with reducing your intake of food is going to be compounded if you've got withdrawals and all the negativity related to that. So this is what I'd say. When you do start lifting heavier, if your goal is to get stronger, right? We're going to look at these two competing goals. If your goal is to get stronger and you're lifting weights more, your muscles are going to be sore, your muscles are going to be hungry, you will be hungry, you need to be able to replenish that. You will only get very disappointed if the next time you go in the gym, numbers are going down or they're plateauing. And that's often because you haven't brought enough energy to the session. That's difficult. Also, if you're hungry, if you're dieting, you don't sleep as well. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you've experienced this before, where you have not necessarily a big meal, but a satisfying meal. You're like, man, I just want to go. I gotta have a sleep now.
Yeah.
You know, you've completed your purpose for the day.
Bedtime.
You're like, oh, I feel good. I'm going to rest. And I'm not necessarily promoting a big meal before you go to sleep, but there's something to satisfying your nutritional needs. And then you're like, okay, my day is done. I can rest and restore now. Going to bed hungry is a f***ing bad vibe.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak to good sleep. And if you don't have good sleep, you can also not. Like, it limits your ability to get stronger.
It doesn't matter how much you jerk off. It's going to be a bad sleep.
That's right. I mean, just speaking from experience here, people.
Yeah. I'm red raw over here and I'm not tired yet.
So let's talk about it. If you're trying to lose weight, we need to get a grip on how much energy you're taking in and how much energy you're putting out. And generally, it's going to require you to do a bit more. Now, you don't have to go dramatic, but you do want to factor in being more physically active and also eating a little bit less. So what does that look like? So, people get really big on like intermittent fasting. And yeah, there's plenty of benefits to be.
It's a strategy.
Yeah, to that. And that's a really probably easy way to just reduce your calorie intake, right?
Super simple. You just go, I'm not having that meal.
I'm not having breakfast.
Yeah.
Like I stop eating at 6 p.m. and I don't eat again till lunchtime.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy to manage. Like it's in terms of life.
Yeah.
You're a busy human. You got kids. You got business. Now that might mean you're a little bit irritable in the morning because you're a little bit, but you get used to it.
Yeah. So I mean, most of the guys I talk to just find intermittent fasting like really kind of easy. Once you get over the habitual thing of like not having breakfast, because you gain time.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to go and eat breakfast or make it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's actually quite incredible how you actually have energy even though you haven't eaten. It's like you're fine. You're not going to die just because you didn't eat for some hours. Slightly different for women, hey? Like I think the science shows that it's can fuck with them more hormonally.
Yeah, definitely. But then also, interestingly enough, they had done some studies to show that even just having a small amount of protein doesn't have like a negative effect on the benefits you get from.
Really?
Yeah. So they're saying I think it's like 40 to 80 grams of protein in the morning, whether it be like in the form of eggs or the form of meat or however you take your protein, provided it doesn't necessarily have carbs involved, it doesn't take away from the scavenging effects of like the positive effects of fasting, which is what people love.
Controversial.
No, it was interesting. I was like,
that would be, yeah.
Because that just plugs the hole.
Like, yeah, I don't have to give up any muscle growth, but I can still be fasting.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, and everybody is different. Here's the thing, there's people out there, like for example, Brian Johnson, very popular guy. He's all about don't die, which is just solid advice anyway. Nothing revolutionary there, but he's the one like don't have food after I think it's like 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. He's like you shouldn't eat there, right? Because he believes that is the way. But that's another way that, like, if you stop eating at 4 or 5 p.m. and then you sleep.
Got night class at 7.
Yeah, like, and say you do eat breakfast, that's still a good, 16-hour window.
Back end.
Right? However you manage your reduction in calories, if you've got a limited time window, you probably have to go a little bit harder. You're going to have to eat like 500 calories less and burn 500 calories more. Like it's one of these things that if you've got a limited time, you're going to have to work a bit harder dieting and being active, right? So without getting too specific there, it will be harder to do and it will be less sustainable.
So we got fasting there as like one strategy.
Yes.
What's another strategy for cutting your calories?
So the thing, like I was saying before, fat, not that fat is the demon, but 1 gram of fat is also not.
It's more energy dense than the other macronutrients.
So if you reducing it, but then there's the other argument, which is satiety, the things that make you feel good. So having a little bit of fat can make you feel fuller, even though you have only had a little bit of it. So in terms of actually managing it, the reason why there's such an emphasis on protein is they're saying metabolically protein is almost like a net negative because it takes a lot of energy to break protein down. Metabolically, it actually costs energy to with protein. So if you eat meals that favor like are a larger percentage protein, then it doesn't affect your insulin levels. It makes it easier for you to just keep churning away on whatever body fat you might have. So
you're talking there cutting out a framework that someone put to me like with this calorie deficit thing is like for a lot of people it's just really easy to draw a line in the sand. And so that line might be, I don't eat breakfast anymore.
Sure.
Right? It's like, I just don't eat it, or I don't eat it Monday to Friday, whatever. Yeah. That makes it simple. Another one might be like, I'm cutting carbs.
Sure.
A lot of people cut carbs, and I do this myself at times.
Sure.
And it's like, well, carbs aren't the demon, like there's a lot of benefit to them, etc. But as a strategy, sometimes if you just go, I'm getting rid of that, it makes it really easy for you to sustain that.
Yeah. And on top, sorry, just to just to kind of segue with that one, is when you cut out carbs, you also lose water. Because for every gram of carbohydrate you ingest, you need anywhere from 3 to 4 mils of water to process it. So part of the reasons why Atkins got really popular initially, when people were dropping the carbs out, they're like, oh, I've lost all this weight. Actually, it was water loss. Mm-hmm. So by cutting out, say it was 100 grams of, theoretically, just hypothetically, 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, they now were not retaining 400 mils of water, and they're like, "Oh, I'm looking a bit less
leaning up
fluffy."
over here.
Yeah, and it wasn't that they'd burned fat or anything; it was just they had less associated water retained.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, but they also got a little bit less energy to with.
Well, yeah, and I mean that little bit less energy thing is definitely part of any calorie deficit approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for some people, it might be like another simple way might be like, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol.
Oh,
Next 3 months, I'm going to cut out alcohol.
The easiest way.
Right? Super easy. Or you might be like, I don't know, maybe you eat, maybe it's bread. Maybe you go, I'm cutting out bread. I just don't, like nothing, like no bread, no pastries.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that like there's a bunch of ways you can go about reducing your calories. I find that it's about the one that works best for you.
Yes.
Some of them are more extreme than others, right? But when we boil it all down, it's like just eat less. But I do find personally, and for most people, it's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, I'm going to have a smaller portion, but I'm going to eat the same foods, but just less. That's sort of hard to keep a track of because it's like, well, how much am I eating? Like, unless you want to do that thing where you carry around the small plate and you're like, all I'm going to eat is the food that can fit. Apparently that works really
People bring small plates?
Yeah, apparently it works really well for a lot of people where it's like,
Wow.
I can only eat what I can fit on this small plate.
Wow, I haven't heard that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like super simple, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because, you look at our dinner plates, they're big. And the studies show when you have a big plate, you're inclined to fill it.
Right,
That's what we do. We just fill plates.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm getting at finding the thing that works for you and just sticking to it for a few months.
Well, speaking of what you were saying before about making a rule, I think this is also another thing. Like for me, I actually didn't drink alcohol for 5 years, and I just was really staunch about it that people knew not to kind of fuck with me about it. I was just like, I don't drink alcohol, and they were like, why? And I'm like, it's my rule. People were like, all right,
Don't ask him that.
Antisocial. Guess we're not inviting this guy again.
Yeah.
But once you make it a rule, it just means it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
If you fluff around, you're like, yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's easy to kind of fall off that. So you could just say no pastries, or when I get a coffee, no snacks, whatever it might be, or maybe an easy way might be. And I'm not demonizing because I'm a big milk drinker. I love it, but also I love being big. You might cut out milk. You might drink your coffee black if you hate yourself or you want to get after it in that way. It's difficult, right? Like,
big fan of black coffee.
You got to choose. You do have to choose when it comes to weight loss, and you got to be able to stick to it. So if you can't stick to it, then it's just not. There's no point.
Yeah.
So choosing an activity that you can do on a regular basis, whether it be walking, whether you might park slightly further away and walk 10 minutes. That's a thing that annoys the shit out of my fiance. I hate parking in big stacked car parks. So if we're going to movies or we're going somewhere, I always try and find the car park that's like 10, 15 minutes walk from the thing.
Funny, I parked in a car park. I hated getting out. I'm like, I can't get out of here. It was, and I'm like, I hate these car parks. Funny you say that.
I think I watched too many disaster movies, like too much Fast and Furious, where they computer control all the
shut them down
cars and this crash. And I'm always thinking disaster scenarios, like how we get out of here. That's why I hate going to IKEA, because I'm like, if a fire breaks out, I think I'm going to die.
I just turbo boost out the side of the thing into the adjacent building.
Thank you, Vin Diesel. Appreciate your love of physics and fast cars, muscle cars. Do you need the best inside information on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I have the answer for you. It is Tap, Nap, and Snap, the Jiu-Jitsu newsletter. We have partnered with them to help you guys connect to the latest happenings, drama, gossips, and goings-on in the BJJ world. We even have our own little section dedicated to helping you move better for BJJ. So if you're interested to find out more, click the link below and get connected with Tap, Nap, and Snap, the BJJ newsletter. But yeah, so I will always park a little ways away and then walk.
To get your steps in.
Yeah, and it's default mode, right? Like I've been obsessive with this. So if you're not that kind of a person, that's fine. I totally get it. But you got to make it easy for you to be more active. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm just going to do cardio after my weight training. No, you can do that. For sure. You can go, yeah, after I do my weights workout, I'm going to go and do some activity for an extra 15, 20 minutes. If that's the way you can get it in, that's great. But what they have shown is the people who have the most success with their weight loss, it's the incidental activity. Mm-hmm. It's the people who are just more active throughout the whole day. It's easier for them to lose weight.
Yeah, it's not more working out. It's just more movement.
And so if we go the other direction and we're like, no, you want to get strong.
Wait, just quickly on that. Would your recommendation be if someone's like, okay, cool, I want to do some of this, to adopt a strategy like one of the ones that we mentioned, maybe for getting in a calorie deficit and also adding in the extra movement?
Yeah.
Or would you say do one, get that habit on lock, and then add the other one?
No, I think you can do both.
Yeah.
They're just different.
Yeah.
They're different. If anything, the calorie deficit thing doesn't mean, oh, you've got to suddenly start making all these salads or doing whatever. If anything, it's like do less here, do more there. And that's a simple equation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying ignore taking care of your food, but it actually, one of the easiest things could be, I'm just not going to have snacks. And that might mean you have to go hungry. And you got to just, there's periods where, I usually have a muesli bar or I usually have just cut that out. Like that's 200 calories you don't have to have.
Yeah.
You've just got to deal with a little bit of a tummy rumble before you get to, and after a while your tummy won't rumble because over time your tummy does shrink and you don't need that energy there. But finding ways to be more active, I believe, is possibly harder.
Yeah, it's true because it takes time.
It takes time.
You usually have to add in a bit of time. It's like if you're trying to get in, okay, I'm going to do a 45, 60-minute walk. It's like, where do I get that hour?
Yeah.
But there's ways, right? And like you said, finding smart little hacks like parking further away or maybe not driving to the shops every time you got to go buy groceries or whatever. Yeah,
take the stairs, whatever it might be. But also, so there was a saying that my dad gave me, I don't know where it comes from, which is like, if you can stand instead of sit, do that, like on the bus or on the train. If you can walk instead of stand, so instead of catching the bus and standing on the bus, walk. If you can run instead of walk, run. And this, anyway, my dad's a bit of a hyperactive runner. He's always been that way. But he drilled that into me from a pretty young age to say, this is how you stay active. Like just standing burns more energy than sitting. So if you have an opportunity, you're waiting for something, stand instead. Or do Cossack squats like a socially awkward motherfucker.
But they're getting stronger piece.
Yeah, so getting stronger. So let's go the other direction because like weight loss is boring. No, it's relevant, but it's one of those things that getting strong is one of the hardest things to do, especially as you get older. Like they've shown that as your hormone profile diminishes over time, you can alter it by lifting weights. You can build muscle. You can change the cellular age of your body by lifting weights. So that's why I'm so passionate about people getting strong. But in order to get stronger, you generally need a little bit extra there. And so in order for your body to gradually build up over time, you have to be supplying it with just that little bit extra. And it doesn't always have to be protein. Like we always prioritize protein, but they've shown that people can put on muscle mass just by adding carbs. Like we talked about this before about like your mate was on the muffin diet.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that was just pure water retention.
Yeah, it's just mass,
swole, jacked. But this myth of like a clean bulk versus a dirty bulk, it doesn't mean a lot, right? Like essentially, if you're eating surplus calories, whether you're doing it through junk food or you're doing it through healthy food, obviously your baseline health will be better if you're eating more nutritious foods, but you can still put on muscle like eating
McDonald's,
Twinkies, and all these things, right?
Twinkies, nice.
Yeah, you just know. Sam Sulek, shout out.
What's up, US fam?
We know what's up. But that's,
see you guys at the Home Depot.
Believe that it's actually called a bonnet, Joey, not a hood. We live in Australia.
Bonnet.
Anyway, don't worry about it, folks. Just comment about our Australian accents and saying American terminology.
Just on that, if you're training, like if you're following a strength program.
Yep.
And you decide that you're going to go calorie deficit and try to drop, just keep training. Don't stop what you're doing. You will keep getting stronger. If you go extreme with your calorie deficit, you might start to go backwards with your training. But if you're just like, if you're keeping shit at a moderate level, you're just not maximizing the strength.
I think it's hard enough to get strong when you eat well. Like when you eat like to get stronger is the hardest, like maximum strength within the classification of athletic qualities. 1RM strength is the hardest thing to attain. It takes the longest to get. But the great thing is, the reason why it's up there is if you get strong, it has filter down effects on everything else, which is awesome. So being stronger means you also have the ability to be faster, not necessarily the same thing. Same thing, if you're stronger, you have the ability to be more powerful. But, if you're just working on your cardiovascular endurance, you won't be stronger. You won't be more powerful.
But right, but so in that regard, I'm
putting a premium on strength
for sure, and I would too. But I would say hey, if you're trying to hit the topic of getting stronger and losing weight, there's no need to change what you're doing with your training. Just keep going for it.
Yeah, definitely. But if I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I don't believe you can do both well. Like chase two rabbits, catch none. Like if you're going to choose to lose weight, I think go down that path. And it doesn't mean don't lift, but don't expect that you're going to get a lot stronger. You might get a little bit stronger relative to
you're not maximizing the result from that thing.
But if we go the other path, because this is my stance on it, and you don't have to agree on this one, Joey, but if you're really trying to get strong, well, just don't even think about the weight loss. Just focus on every day I want to come into the gym fresh, restored, and lift as well as I can.
Absolutely.
So that generally means you've got to eat a little bit more to help the muscles grow. Because here's the thing, which, for a long time, they're like, no, you can put on lean muscle mass. Actually, you need to be in a surplus. And really, we couldn't tell you if you're going to put on body fat. Like you might. Maybe you're a bit of a freak and you just grow muscle and you don't put on body fat. But that's really down to genetics and a few other elements.
The popular term for that's recomping, isn't it? Recomposition?
Yeah.
Where it's burn fat, build muscle.
Incredibly hard to do, right? I think Luke Tulloch put out a post saying, if you want to grow muscle, you have to accept that you're going to put on a bit of body fat.
Yeah.
And that just goes with the territory.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, which is really awesome about growing muscle, is it improves your life quality. They look at longevity, they look at health. The older you get, the more muscle mass you have, the better your quality of life. So we all know that jiu-jitsu breaks your body down, and really training jiu-jitsu a lot tends to, because most of us don't know how many calories we burn when we do jiu-jitsu. Some sessions are harder, some are not. And, it's actually a lot of energy that you put out in a jiu-jitsu session. And we've talked about this before, most people who are doing jiu-jitsu on a very regular basis are under eating. The nature of jiu-jitsu training causes appetite suppression, and, you don't feel like eating after. And there's all these things which mean that you may be in a state of calorie deficit, even though you're not necessarily aware of it. So if you go to the gym and you're under-fueled, you're going to have a shit weight training session. You're like, why aren't I getting stronger? No, I'll just go to BJJ. We don't think about it in this way. So if you're prioritizing strength, you do have to prioritize making sure you are getting a good amount of carbohydrate, fat, and protein. So you go in there and you do get stronger each session. And I think the problem is we want it all. We want to be good at jiu-jitsu, we want to be strong, we want to be lean. But Gordon Ryan does it. Mikey Musumeci does it. And these people in their own way are outliers and live a life that you cannot live. So it's it's strange because in jiu-jitsu, those people seem, I don't know why, people feel like they could be like them. But if you said, oh, but Michael Jordan does it, we all know Michael Jordan's, the guy, it is almost impossible for you to be like him. Or it's like LeBron James. It's almost impossible for you to do what that person has done. So you need to kind of come back to what have I done before? So if you've never lost 10 kilos before, it's going to be a journey of discovery. In the same way, if you've never deadlifted 200 kilos before, that's going to be quite a process as you go. And for everybody, it is different. But I think when we come back to this topic of can you get stronger and lose weight, I believe you need to choose. That's what I would say. And it doesn't mean you can't lose weight and get a little bit stronger, but you're not going to get a lot a bit stronger. Mm. And in the same way, if you're gonna really get strong, you can't expect to be Mikey Musumeci ripped.
Yeah, I agree.
There it is, folks. I believe you might just have to make a choice. Power to you.